All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Happy Friday to everyone out there. We got April 4th and a 10-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like in the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to all of my final plays, so I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest you, absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3, 4 more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. In terms of yesterday, it was a weird slate. We were conservative, and I'm damn glad we were. We had a 2-0 night the night before, and then last night a 1-0 night. Still nothing that's qualifying for the money gun being brought out. But we had the Bucks, Timberwolves, and Grizzlies money line. Shout out to Ja Morant for his game winner there, because had to kind of sweat that one out, right? Minnesota and the Bucks looked good. Grizzlies, we were thinking about them -4.5. Glad we didn't go there. Just threw them into this slimy little parlay and hit for a half unit there. So yeah, 1-0 night. We'll rarely have just one play on the board, but I will say it definitely helps the juices that we have MLB going, because I can't imagine like mid-season of the MLB just having one play out there. I'm always preaching like be conservative when you need to be and all that, but I just felt empty yesterday. But felt fulfilled that it came through. So you know what? One more cha-ching there. In terms of the ride of the day, we do have to kind of take a turn for the worse here. We had Peace, and I hate to drop the womp-womp on this one, but he had D'Lo, 7+ assists, 10+ assists. D'Angelo Russell finished with only, 13 minutes played, 1 assist. Tough. I loved the rationale and reasoning and everything like that too. So unfortunately, yeah, this one does not come through. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, it's simple. Just use that hashtag ride of the day or ROTD down in the comments. I jump up with one person's play each and every day. Give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. If you win, we continue to ride with your plays. If you lose, we do give you the shout out, but you got to face the womp and face the music like Peace did today. I also shout you out over on my Twitter/X, which will be popping up here throughout the show. Make sure to check that out. That's how you can probably quickest find the ride of the day for the day as well, if I have posted it. But it's also with the final plays in the pinned comment there, taking you to the Guy Boston Sports site. So plenty of ways to find, hey, what's the ride of the day today? A couple different ways to find it. So yeah, go ahead and drop those hashtag ride of the days down in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Let's get going here. We got Indiana taking on Utah. I will say to start this off, I mean, you look at the spreads, you look at some of the teams. We're still in, and I know I'm a broken record, but, for the new people watching, we're still in a weird time in the NBA. So though we have a 10-game slate, I don't envision having a million plays today, and I don't know if you should either, because some games are a little bit wonky. This one being potentially one of them. We do have Indiana taking on Utah. No Walker Kessler, no John Collins, no Lauri Markkanen, though. So obviously that's a huge factor for Utah, though they should be used to playing with injuries this season. Indiana, though, Pascal Siakam's questionable, Aaron Nesmith's questionable, as is Benedict Mathurin. So those are obviously some big, especially Siakam, big injuries for Indiana. They're coming off of a game a couple nights ago in which they were 15-point favorites, and they beat Charlotte by 14. They pretty much did their job, but just have not covered. So they are still a team that is rolling in terms of win-loss, but just not covering. Indiana, 8-2 in their last 10 in terms of just straight up, right, win or loss. 3-7 against the number, and it's unfortunate because they're getting damn close, right? They're 2 games. They've missed the mark on the spread. They've won both of them. They've missed the mark covering the spread by like a combined 3 points. So tough to see that. Utah on the other side, I mean, they've lost, 7 straight games, 9 of their last 10. They've probably thrown in the towel, but I don't know how interested I am at dropping 16 points with Indiana when they just can't seem to cover. So started off with a psycho alert alarm here. I'll lean towards Utah plus the 16, but that's almost because we're required on this show to take a side, right? What I'd actually consider is taking a peek at an over, but realistically probably an Indiana team total over. I think Indiana's defense could play decently today. We've seen Utah start to shoot the ball a little bit more, but Indiana's perimeter defense is pretty good, right? But Indiana, on the offensive side of things, sure, they'll shoot the three ball, but if Pascal Siakam plays, I guess that is a big factor too, but they should be able to score down low like you read about today. No Lauri Markkanen, no Kessler, no John Collins. Kessler being the only real, guy that I'm factoring into that because Markkanen and Collins more offensive guys. But I think that Indiana could put up a respectable number today. My one concern is when I say respectable number, look at that total at 236, right? You look at Indiana's team total right now, you're probably looking at 125.5 or something like that. So yeah, that is where I would go if I had to roll with something in this one. Luckily, no one's putting to our head and making us roll with anything that we don't want to, right? So that would be where I go, but unfortunately, this is just a weird one. In terms of player props, it kind of stinks because Siakam was a look of mine in terms of what I might like in this spot. That in the paint area where he loves to do that pull-up, so it's not at the rim, kind of like foul line-ish, right? They really, really struggle in Utah at defending that. So I liked the idea of Pascal Siakam, but now he's questionable. So that would be where I'd look, but we'd obviously want to make sure that he plays. Charlotte taking on Sacramento. Another kind of weird one here. I mean, obviously Charlotte is just ridden with injuries. Sacramento fairly healthy, and you guys know if you have been watching all year, for whatever reason, this Sacramento team has me in a chokehold, right? That being said, Charlotte, not exactly the worst opponent to be going up against when you want to right the ship. And this Charlotte team, I think, should want to right the ship. They're in the 10 seed right now. Now, they're on the road, but they're in the 10 seed right now in the West. They are, I think it's either a game or a game and a half, so still somewhat reachable, right, of in front of the Suns. So the Suns may still be coming for them. I think they're either a game and a half or 2 games behind the Mavericks, so there's still some attainability there, very, very marginally, but you know what I mean? There's still some sort of we need to play, we need to fight. And 11 points isn't the craziest number. Yes, Sacramento hasn't been covering, hasn't been winning, but this is not 13 points. This is not 15 points. So, yeah, they got me in a chokehold. I'm going to lean towards Sacramento for a couple different reasons. This is a Sacramento team that when they have a good paint matchup, I do think that they, play fairly well. And we've started to see Charlotte's paint defense, even though I've given them a decent amount of credit throughout this season, they are almost done with the year, right? I think that they're looking ahead to vacation and all that type of thing. So we should see some decent performance from, guys that like to take it into the paint. Sabonis being one of those guys, even DeRozan from the mid-range and the short mid-range there. So I like that spot. And one thing that I'll mention probably that kind of tipped me into potentially, and again, this is a potential actual spot. I would probably do what we've been doing late in the year with the slimy parlay, so maybe Sacramento -2.5 in some sort of a parlay before I lay 11 points. But the thing that actually got me kind of on the side of Sacramento, other than the fact that for whatever reason I got purple-colored glasses here, Sacramento, we know that they struggle against the perimeter teams, right? I mean, they are, I think, dead last in terms of points allowed from 3 per game. Charlotte, above the break, the 4th fewest shots per game so far this in the last 10 games, excuse me. So with no LaMelo, all these injuries, they've definitely gravitated more towards the paint. That feeds right into what Sacramento actually can defend. So that's a big reason why I do think Sacramento has an edge in this spot overall. So yeah, I'm being I'm doing my typical, I like Sacramento tonight thing that I've done 90% of the games this year, but ultimately I think this actually is a good spot for them. We did see this matchup a little over a month ago, 130-88 win for Sacramento. They were 11-point favorites in that one, and they won. Now, they were at home, that's a factor, but again, I think Sacramento is going to have Charlotte play right into them defensively today. In terms of what we're looking at from a total, this seems fairly low. Like I mentioned, Sacramento, I think, should be able to score at the paint, score in the mid-range. So maybe we could even say screw the spread, right? Screw the idea of a slimy parlay. What if we just look at Sacramento, who hopefully will up the pace today, because that would be an advantage over Charlotte too, who's a slow team. What if we look at Sacramento over, 114.5 for their team total, over 113.5, something like that. They haven't done that in forever, but if we look at the Charlotte defense, not all that good. The one concern is, does Sacramento even need to score a lot of points to beat this team? Most likely not. If they get to 100, they might win. So, yeah, I'd say Sacramento in some sort of a slimy parlay and or their team total over. And then I mentioned 2 guys I'd consider player props. Now, player props have been a little dicey because you can say, oh, well, the teams are getting blown out and all that, but players play for the teams, and if you have a guy's over in points and they're winning by 20 in the 4th quarter, it's yeah, you only got probably 3/4 of what you thought you were going to get minutes-wise out of them. So Sabonis and DeRozan are guys that I'd look at, but if you could snag first halves or maybe alternate lines in a parlay, that's probably how I would start leaning towards player props to close out the year. Luckily, speaking of player props, Sleeper has you covered. You don't need to worry about this one because LeBron, even if he plays 2 minutes, he'll probably score 1 point, right? New customers get the LeBron 0.5 point square. That is an amazing deal, like first and foremost, right? If they were just saying, hey, go get that 0.5 point square, you might race there, sign up, deposit, and get that square because you can add it into your entry and it'll just boost the payout. The biggest thing that they have, and I've been saying this for how long now, the fact that they are still offering the play $5, get $55 deal is absurd to me. Like, that is 11xing your entry, boom, right there as a new customer. You sign up, you deposit, you place a $5 lineup, you get 11 free $5 lineups after that. Absolute no-brainer. Like, literally, guys, go check out Sleeper. That link will be down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. You can also just go to the App Store and sign up using code GUYBOSTON. Deposit, you'll get all the same deals. Told you guys plenty, right? I've used Sleeper for over 2 years now. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, DFS player prop app out there. What's cool is their dynamic payouts. Each and every play that you throw into your entry ends up changing the payout. It doesn't follow a fixed payout structure. So it's very, very cool and unique. They have a ton of alternate lines. You know, when you see posts on Twitter and stuff like that, and then you go to place them on your own app and they've already been bumped or moved, Sleeper doesn't do that because they have all those alternate lines. They keep the squares on there. Go ahead and check it out, guys. That link will be down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. Let's jump back into these games here. Celtics taking on Phoenix, and we saw the Celtics, play against Miami, and part of what I said in the video kind of came true, right? That Miami's going to care about this and the Celtics may not. And it like I said, kind of came true. I mean, no real injuries on the Celtics, right? Actually, Jaylen Brown's questionable, but Durant's out for Phoenix, which is a big, big deal. I would say that this is too big of a number to be laying, but Durant kind of has me little shaken, and this is a Phoenix team that we just talked about them being below Sacramento. I want to say a week ago they weren't, and they've lost 4 straight games now. They just played the Celtics team, I want to say 2 weeks ago. Does that sound right? Maybe a week and a half ago, and they lost by 30. Like, Durant being out is a massive, massive factor here, but 14 points is a lot for a Celtics team that realistically their number one goal right now should be not to get injured, not to wear their guys out, get ready for the playoffs. So I'll sound another cycle alarm. You might hear it a lot in today's video. I don't mind Phoenix plus the points solely because of what this game should mean independently to both squads, right? Especially if Jaylen doesn't play, then you kind of have the comp of no Durant, no Jaylen, sure. Do the Celtics win this one? I wouldn't be surprised if they win this game. I think that they match up very, very well and should be able to kind of dominate from the perimeter. This is a really bad Suns perimeter defense, and what do the Celtics do? Chuck Norris. You know what I mean? So, yes, this is probably a spot where the Celtics win, but 14 points and counting seems like it's and what I mean by counting, it's already up to 14 and a half. Seems like it's a little bit too much for a team that, again, all they should want to do is slow things down, make sure they're not getting injured, maybe get a win to keep building morale and all that type of stuff, but to win and go and dominate by 15 points, I don't think the Celtics need to do, whereas the Suns need to win this game to continue their season in a couple weeks. So, yeah, give me the Suns plus the points, but Celtics probably, if we could fit them in a money line with a lower line, that's where I'd go. In terms of a total, I don't mind an under, similar to that game against Miami, right? The Celtics did let up 124, but that game was down at 211. If we have a total here at 120 or 225, I could see this being a game where the Celtics could even win, 115 to 110, slightly high scoring, and somehow that's still under. So, yeah, without Durant, I don't think the Suns' offense is going to be firing on all cylinders, and we've kind of seen that recently, right? Now, they did just score, what was it, against Milwaukee? That was a really, really good comeback for them, so I'll give them credit there, but it was almost like 40 points from was it 40 points from Booker, and then there's one guy that I don't even really know, I forget his name, but Gypsy or something like that scored 20 points, right? So it's like, I don't think that they get that, especially against a better defense in the Celtics. And then no real player props in this one. I've kind of putted around the idea of guys like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser that seem to hit their threes when the Celtics have big leads and whatnot. But the books have caught up to that. So that's probably where I'd look. These catch and shoot guys, especially against a Phoenix team that struggles on the perimeter and specifically struggles against the catch and shoot. They're actually decent against the pull-up. So that's where I'd look. Those have chances of being a final play because you don't need 4 quarters, right? Like Peyton Pritchard could hit 3 threes in a half type of thing. So maybe I'd look there. Toronto taking on Detroit in this one here. We have Toronto, who's obviously kind of been a struggling team. 2 straight losses. They did kind of go on a run, but that was a Brooklyn, Charlotte, Washington, and they played someone else terrible, and they won all 4 of those games. So you had to factor that in. Detroit now has had what I would consider a very hard schedule, and they've lost 2 straight, but it's against Minnesota, who's playing some good basketball, and OKC. So they probably, and that's all without Cade Cunningham, right? Now he's questionable, and I almost expect him to play tonight. So that'll be a little add to them. Might be without Tobias Harris, so that's a factor. But on the other side of things, we should see Quickly potentially playing, as well as Jakob Poeltl. But ultimately, you have Toronto on a back-to-back here. They are at home, so I guess you give them a little bit of credit there. But Toronto on back-to-backs, only 50% cover rate this season, so not terrible, but not great. But Detroit, 53% when they have a rest advantage over their opponent. You look at these two teams head-to-head, and Detroit 5-0 in their last 5. That's dating back a couple of years. This season, they are 2-0 and 1-1 against the number, but they are 5-0 in their last 5 and 4-1 against the number against this Toronto squad. So, yeah, that 12 is a huge number, but I would almost look at Detroit, if Cade Cunningham plays, as a potential spot in some sort of alternate line parlay, slimy parlay like that. In terms of a total, I do think where Toronto can kind of get involved here is to absolutely up the tempo. And Detroit would, if they'd be glad to up the tempo, right? So overall, I think there could be some points here, but mainly on the Detroit side of things, because Toronto, now Jakob Poeltl's there, that's going to be a big difference, but Toronto covers the perimeter well, but Detroit's going to say, sure, take your perimeter. We like to take it into the paint, right? Over the last 10 games, they're the second highest frequency at the rim. Toronto, not exactly the best defense down there. So I think Detroit will get buckets at ease if they do get to the rim. So that's going to be a spot that I definitely consider overall. The over, but also just the team total over, because Toronto likes to score at the rim too. I left that out. Detroit's actually a decent defense there at the rim. So I would say Detroit team total over. It would be the pivot in this one. The problem, and it's not going to be as egregious like the Indiana spot was, but the problem is you're still with these big spreads and, that type of thing. You're looking for a big number. 119.5 is going to be what you have to look at for Detroit. Now, they have hit the over in 5 of their last 10, so 50-50 that number. If you can get a good number and good line, then sure. But maybe just the full game over, because I do think Toronto can kind of contribute with some pace here overall. And actually, speaking of pace, I think when we do see games that I expect to have some, high flying, high scoring, I like the idea of taking a peek at Emmanuel Quickly. Now, again, he should be playing. He didn't play yesterday, so great. He's going to have some fresh legs under him. And do I love the matchup? Not so much for rebounds and assists, but for points, I really do. But I think you have to factor in everything. So I'd look at IQ's points, rebounds, and assists in this one. I wanted to look at his over. I think it's 8.5 rebounds plus assists, but the Pistons are pretty damn good against those categories over the last 7 games here against point guards. So I didn't really want to get there, but now you do have Quickly, who should be running in transition. He's hit this in 9 of his last 10. He's hit it in 8 straight. Last 2 times he played Detroit, 38 and 29 PRAs. So Quickly could be a decent spot here in terms of a player prop look. All right, Houston taking on OKC. This should be a good game. Now you have the number 1 seed in the West going up against the number 2 seed in the West. Both teams should be pretty good in terms of where they're going to ultimately end up seeding-wise. So I don't think that this is going to matter all that much. It's not like, unless, Houston loses all their games and Denver wins all their games and some craziness happens, I don't think Denver's taking over the 2 seed, and the Rockets sure as hell aren't taking over the 1 seed. OKC's like 15 games up in the West there. So this should just be a good old-fashioned good basketball game, but not necessarily with any implications playoff-wise, right? Which kind of tells me, why wouldn't the Thunder be able to go out there and just do their thing, right? Like, they're the far better team, even though Houston is a good team and has been playing really good basketball. 8-2 straight up. They're 3-7 against the number, but I will throw in they're usually favorites. They're getting 6 points here, so I don't have the data on them as underdogs, but I'm sure it's got to be pretty good. But OKC is just rolling. Like, this team is giving a big FU and a middle finger to the league in terms of, how they kind of let down last year. They were playing really well towards the end of the year, and then also in the playoffs kind of let down. They're saying, let's close this out. They have laid numbers like 20.5 against Charlotte. They won by 30. They've laid numbers like last game, 13 against the Cade Cunningham-less Pistons. They win by 16. This team is saying, we are going to continue to cover games. Last 10 games, that's only the sample size I have. I think it goes beyond that. 10-0 straight up and 10-0 against the number, and they're laying an average of like over double digits. So this team is saying, we're still going to play. We're still going to give our guys minutes, even when, we're up by a bunch. Like the starters are still playing 35 plus. Shay's still playing nearly 40 minutes. I think he's got to move back down to like 36, but still. So yeah, for me, this is a spot for OKC to continue doing what they're doing. Now they've played a few times this season. First game was in OKC and they won by nearly 20. Next time was in Houston, and Houston, this is the only game they've played in Houston so far this year. Houston, as 1-point dogs, actually won the game by 3 outright. So I think that that's fairly important to note. I will say, you got 38 points from Fed VanVleet. Do we really think that that's going to happen again today? I don't. And that was a no. I don't think Chet Holmgren was in that game either. The next time they played OKC, won by, I think it was like 15. That was in OKC. And then they won by 9 in OKC. So sure, when they're in Houston, it's kind of tough because the only one game that we have recently, they did win. But ultimately, I think OKC is just a much better team. How many times can I say that, right? So yeah, I'm going to lean towards the Thunder in this spot. I think they'll be able to take it into the paint too. And what we know about Houston is they like to score in the paint. The Thunder, in their last 10 games, allowing 57% of their opponents at the rim. That's like ridiculous numbers. You know what I mean? In terms of what we have from a total, this is probably an under spot for me. You do have the Thunder who can run, but I think that they're going to prioritize defense and making sure that Houston doesn't get any easy looks. And I don't think we're going to have multiple, like, you know, you have OKC, who's not the best rebounding team. Houston's a very good rebounding team, so I don't think you're going to have multiple shots per possession in terms of offensive rebounds and whatnot, so I don't mind an under in this spot. San Antonio taking on Cleveland. Much like we just talked about with the Thunder, there's really no chance that Cleveland loses that number 1 seed in the East. Celtics are like 5+ games back, but looks like they're playing everyone today. 13 points does seem like it's a big number, but realistically, when we look at what Cleveland's been doing to kind of close out the year. Not to say they're doing what the Thunder have been doing, but using the last 4 of the 5 games, like they've had some big numbers and they've looked okay. I mean, mainly against the Knicks, which obviously Knicks were injured, but 124-105 win, and they were 10.5-point favorites. I would expect that game to be much, much closer. And you know what? Cleveland said, no, we're going to make a statement. We're going to play. So you got even 23 points out of Anunoby. So yes, no Jalen Brunson, but you did get a good game out of Anunoby, which kind of makes up a little bit for that, right? So to me, Cleveland is still, you know, facing the music and playing well. This line is going down, though. I've seen a couple 12 and a halfs out there, excuse me. So if you want to wait it out, maybe that's the move. But to me, I think that Cleveland is going to have the same mindset as OKC. The 2 number 1 seeds know that there's a lot of kind of expectations riding on them. They haven't been historically the best, you know, team in their conference or whatnot. I feel like Denver's kind of ruled the West. If it was not the Warriors, Denver. And then on the other side, the Celtics for the last couple of years, right? And I'm talking Cleveland without LeBron, okay? Both of these teams have a lot to prove, so I think they're going to fire on the rest of the year, you know what I mean? At least for the next couple games. So, yeah, I think that Cleveland could come in here and do some work against San Antonio. In terms of actually rolling with it, maybe not that big number. Maybe we do look at something like we've been saying with some of these big favorites. We just look at them on the money line in a parlay or a lower number or something like that. That total 241 seems way, way, way too high for me. Is it possible that these two can get up there? Of course. This is a really good Cleveland team offensively, and it's a pretty fast-paced team in the Spurs, right? They're top 10, I believe, over the last 10 games, if not, top, 8 or so. So sure, they can go out there. I don't know if the Spurs will contribute as much to the total, but I think Cleveland could have a really good game here. But Cleveland's defense being the number 1. So everything I just said kind of would lead towards, I guess you could say, an over. But all that, they play with fast pace. Cleveland should be able to score in San Antonio. But the biggest thing here, I think that San Antonio may end up struggling overall. So, yeah, clearly my brain's a little racked on this one. But I'd still lean towards the under. If this was like 235, I'd consider the over because we do have a lot that bumps this number up. Just to me, it's not all that great of a spot for, ask for 242 against with one of the teams playing against a very good defense. Hopefully that makes sense. Maybe it didn't. Hopefully it did. Chicago taking on Portland in terms of injuries in this one. We do have a decent amount to note on the Chicago side of things, but nothing too crazy, but a lot on the Portland side. So on the Chicago side of things, Josh Giddey's good to go, but no Lonzo, or actually Lonzo is questionable. Phillips, Terry, Carter, and then Trey Jones is out. So all those other guys questionable. Portland, Kamara is questionable. Simons is questionable. Ayton, Henderson, and Williams all out. We've known that. Jeremy Grant listed as doubtful. In terms of this matchup, you have kind of 2 different squads, right? You have Portland, who for the majority of the year had been an interior team, going up against Chicago, who for the majority of the year was an exterior perimeter type of a team. But overall, you have Portland, who's a very good perimeter defense. So forget their scoring for a second. Very good perimeter defense going up against Chicago, who is a terrible interior defense, like literally one of, if not the worst in the league. So this is a tough one because Portland's kind of gone away to some degree, gone away from scoring in the paint. Over the last 10 games, they're second and above the break threes taken and 8th in corner threes, and in the paint just ranked 20th. So all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that's where you guys are supposed to be good, but you've kind of gotten away from it, right? So if they were to say, hey, let's go score in the paint, I don't mind the idea of Portland today, but it's tough to guarantee that. Now, I would also say based on Chicago, yeah, they've had some good games recently and whatnot, but they're shooting, I don't know, is going to be all that consistent, especially against a team like Portland does play decent against the catch and shoot, which is almost exclusively how Chicago takes their threes. In terms of frequency, catch and shoot, number 5 in this on the season, right? Pull up threes, dead last at 30th. So we're really focused on catch and shoot here, and this is a Portland team that, 1, doesn't allow a lot of catch and shoots, and 2, their score percentage defensively, top 5 in the league. So I think that this is a good spot for Portland plus the 6.5 points. I just hope that they can go out there and score in the paint, right? Like if that's the case, then I think that they can even win this one outright. But if I can't trust their offense, I probably pivot to an under 236 in this one. So give me Portland and the under. My one concern, and you guys have been watching all year, you know that we've taken a lot of Bulls unders, because they've been high lines, because they don't play defense, all that, and we've gotten crushed. But I do think Portland can stop the Bulls, offensively today. So what if we were to say, okay, well, let's take a peek at, the Bulls team total under, which I don't even have a line for just yet. Let's see if we can pull that up, because maybe that's the way that we can say under 122.5. That might be something that we can consider here. Last time that they played, which was earlier this year, they scored 102. Against this Portland team. So yeah, maybe under 122.5 is something that we consider. Boom. There's one that I could kind of get behind, because then it's backing what we want to back, right? But at the same time, we're not excluding the idea of, or now we are excluding, but we're not including the idea of Portland being able to score at the rim, like I think. So yeah, I just think the Bulls could struggle offensively today. All right, Denver taking on Golden State. You look at the standings in this one, Golden State a half game up on the Grizzlies in terms of where they are, and they're just a game back of the 4 seed. Denver, I think they're a half game up on the Lakers. They're not catching the Rockets like I mentioned, but I think that they'd be pretty bummed to fall to the 4 seed, because if they play as the 4 seed, I'm trying to remember who they would get in the first round. Probably, I guess, the Warriors in theory, right? But right now, if they were to drop in the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm trying to think about how this could work where the Timberwolves have their number. If the Timberwolves gain and the Nuggets drop, maybe they could play. I'm not exactly sure. I feel like they might be playing the Timberwolves right now, actually, as I say it out in my brain. But nonetheless, this should be a good game, because Nuggets don't want to drop. They're not thinking Timberwolves exclusively. They're thinking, let's win games. We don't want to be the 4 seed. Whereas the Warriors definitely don't want to drop to the 6 seed, and there's still a chance that they can grab that 4 seed. So this should be a good one overall. Obviously, we had Denver in a heartbreaking loss, that last one. And now everyone's listed as questionable. Everyone in their starting lineup's questionable except for Michael Porter Jr. I think Denver bounces back in this one because of what I keep saying about when we ride with Golden State and when we kind of fade Golden State. It all comes down to size for me, right? If you can outsize the Golden State team, I think that you have a little bit of an advantage. Now, they're playing really good basketball. Do not get me wrong. But in terms of being able to, outsize them with Jokic and whatnot, I think this could be a nice matchup for them, because what are they going to throw at, Jokic? Are they going to say, Draymond Green, you go cover him? Yeah, right. Jokic should be able to dominate that. And for what it's worth, Denver has won 9 straight against Golden State. Doesn't matter if it's in Golden State or anything like that. So if Denver had beaten, Minnesota a couple games ago, and then who'd they lose to? They lost a really bad team the next night. Let's see if we can find that. Spurs. Boom. Like, they lost to Minnesota heartbreaking fashion, lose to the Spurs. Like, this team is just due for a win overall. Golden State has won 4 kind of important games. That game against the Lakers was very important. Same thing with Memphis. Like, they're showing up when it counts, but I think Denver does show up today. And again, it comes down to the size and sort of what I deem is going to be the in the paint success. A concern, so if you like Golden State, I'm not trying to talk you off it, because a concern for me could be the perimeter defense for Denver, right? If Golden State continues to shoot well and all that, then it's going to be tough. That being said, where Denver really struggles against the perimeter is the pull-up jumper, and surprisingly, even with Steph on the team, this Golden State team is taking a lot of catch-and-shoot jumpers. So Denver's good at stopping the catch-and-shoot. So I think that's a little niche little fact to know, because you just look at their perimeter D and it's like, oh boy, they should torch them. But the way Golden State has been shooting threes, Denver should be decent at stopping that overall. In terms of what we have from a total, I think this one finishes right around like 232. So yeah, it's very, very close and marginal to that 235 number, but I'd still lean towards the under overall. And like I'd mentioned, I think Jokic could have a good game. Is it a little crazy to sit here and say, hey, let's go have a good game when 2 games ago you had, what did he score, 61? Sure, but again, I don't think that there's going to be many guys that can stop him down low. Another spot I'd consider, if we can still get a good line at it, is what we've hit a couple times now. Jimmy Butler over 1.5 steals plus blocks. So we're going to make sure that we can go out there and get that, but I think that could be a good spot as well, because in these close games and whatnot, his nose is just on the ball. Lakers taking on the Pelicans. This is a big number, but this Lakers team, we've already kind of talked about the standings ad nauseum. Lakers definitely still caring about their season. They're coming off of that loss to Golden State, which was fairly big. New Orleans, towel has been thrown in. So I don't see any reason why the Lakers can't go in here and, I guess, dominate a couple different facets of this one. They should be able to crush in terms of the perimeter. This is a bad New Orleans team. This season, the 2nd or 3rd worst in terms of allowing points from 3, but they also stink in the paint. So if the Lakers do say, hey, let's go score in the paint, they should be able to torch it in there as well. So I like the Lakers in this spot. I'd probably pivot, though, to a Lakers team total over. They're at home. They're a much better offense when they are at home. And this line down at 219.5 seems a little bit too low for me. Now, you're going to want to make sure that LeBron's playing and all that, because he is a game-time decision, but Lakers over 115.5 could be consideration here for me. Last time they played, I believe they were at home against New Orleans, and they scored 136, and that was, I want to say it was like less than a month ago, something like that. So it seems like it could be a decent spot for me against New Orleans overall. When they're at home, 3 straight games, they've scored 130 plus against them overall. And this season, when at home, they're averaging, I believe it's like 116, something like that. Went on back-to-backs, which I believe the Lakers, we got to factor that in because of their team losing to Golden State. Went on back-to-backs does drop a little bit, but at the same time, I feel like the pace could go up because of back-to-backs in this spot. So yeah, give me the Lakers team total over, but also the Lakers minus the points. I think after a loss to Golden State, yes, you got some guys that are tired, and we want to keep an eye on the injury report because of that and whatnot, but man, oh man, should they be coming in fired up to kind of get back in the win column. Clippers taking on Dallas. We look to see if Anthony Davis is playing, and he's questionable, so we don't know. Meaning, I think this is probably a spot for the Clippers. The Clippers kind of right in the middle of that play-in or non-play-in spot, right? They're only a half game out of 6th, a full game out of 5th, but they're the 8th seed right now, so a win would matter for them a lot. Dallas, I mean, they probably still want to win, but Dallas seems pretty cozy in the 9 seed right now. They're a game and a half. Like I said, I don't have that up in front of me, but Sacramento and Dallas kind of battling it out for that 9-10. But either way, it's not like Dallas is going to drop, I don't think, out of the playoffs. So I think this one may mean a little bit more to the Clips. 10 points, I think they can go out there and win this one by double digits. If we look at how this team matches up or how both these teams match up, we've kind of said it before when discussing these squads, right? And I think we haven't seen these two teams play in a while, but similar teams and similar builds against Dallas has been successful, because Dallas really bad at defending the paint, unless Anthony Davis plays, obviously game changer, but a very good perimeter defense, or at least on the season. They've lacked defensively just overall recently, but the Clippers are going to say, I don't care if you're a good perimeter defense. We're going to want to score inside and all that type of stuff. Dallas also runs a ton of isolation. Clippers very good at stopping isolation. Clippers going to shoot a lot of pull-up jumpers, pull-up threes and mid-range. Dallas actually good at defending those, but overall, I do think that in the isolation, Clippers should be able to score. In the pick and roll, they should be able to score, and like I said, down low in the paint, they should be able to score. Now, this line at 226? Is a little too high for me, but I do think Dallas being, I think they're like the top 5, maybe top 4 pace team in the league over the last 10. That's probably why this line has jumped a little bit. And what have we been saying about the Clippers offense? They're legit right now. They played Orlando. That was the only really low scoring game that they had. They played New Orleans and looked good. We had the first half team total over for them. So I could get convinced of a Clippers team total over in this one. It might be a first half team total over again. Now we got kind of lucky hitting that one, right? They scored 30 37 in the second to cash it for us. But with this line being where it is, I could see the Clippers getting to, 116, which is kind of what we need. In the first half, we'd probably, I want to say it's 59.5, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see what we got. Yeah, 59.5. I don't mind that either. Overall, like I said, I think they have a lot of good routes to scoring on this Dallas squad. So give me the Clippers as well as their team total over. This is a weird one where I do think that -10 could come into play even more than just the team total over. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. I know we didn't pull out a bunch of player props in this one. If we do ultimately end up adding any player props or anything like that, I will let you know in the final plays with a little blurb as to my reasoning and rationale and that type of thing. So keep that in mind. I know it's weird in the NBA right now. We're not trying to force anything, and there's obviously a lot of even some of those breakdowns, my brain's going in a million different directions, because not only are you looking at the matchup now, right? Comment 35 if you made it this far, by the way, so you can hear this. So I know you guys, at least that comment 35, heard this rant. But you're not only looking at the matchup or recent play, now we're factoring in standings. Now we're factoring in guys being healthy for the playoffs and teams trying to make them healthy for the playoffs. We're also factoring in teams that are just throwing in the towel. So all of a sudden, betting on the NBA loses a little bit of that, streamlined approach, and sort of there's too many variables, right? Come playoffs, and like I keep saying, I feel like a lot of people are in this boat. Some people aren't, but the teams that are going to be in the playoffs this year it's looking like an awesome playoff situation. I think we're going to have a lot of good matchups. I'm very excited for that, but we do have to kind of get through the storm of crud first, right? So yeah, it is what it is right now, but this happens every NBA season. It happens in every sport at the end of the season. So just worth noting, but keeping in mind and being conservative. But guys, that's all I have for you today. Hope you guys did enjoy. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Catch you guys in the next one, right? Peace out.